I wasn't searching for something, at least not in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't actually start searching for something until I realized that the people that I thought were my family were not my family.
Steph,
Hey y'all,
what up? What up?
how are you?
I feel great. How you feeling?
Tired. I had to work today.
Oh, you had to work today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I won't be too hard on you then.
No, you gotta treat me like you treat everybody else.
Hey, when people tired, I be tired sometimes. Like I remember when I interviewed Boondock Saints. He
Mm-hmm.
I had COVID, so like he pretty much carried me through the whole interview. I asked a question, he talked for 20 minutes. I was like, oh, this is great. I was up this joint hot as a bug. I felt like
well,
I was on fire.
well, I've been waiting to talk to you for a while, so
All
we'll
right.
see.
All right, cool. Let me do the intro for the YouTube cut, and we'll jump into it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back to What's Up With You. Tonight we got my girl, Honey Wordsmith. I call her Steph, so they're interchangeable for me. Steph is a superhero, right? And so tonight we're gonna discuss forgiveness, some of the illnesses that she's fighting and overcoming, some of her past, and whatever else she wants to get into. Tonight's show is brought to you by Batch. Balance is a master key to life. Unlock your expression. Go to BAMMLLC.net/shop Batch for all your clothing, accessory, and apparel needs. Steph, welcome to the show, baby. What's up with you?
Thank you. Not much. It's been a crazy ride.
Mm. So you say you work today, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was good. It was an in-service day, so there were no patrons at the library today.
Okay. So I know you were telling me, and we could get into this more. I know you're telling me it's your goal to be a librarian. So what do you do at the library right now?
Right now, I work as a library aide, and that means that I help people when they come through the door. I'm the first face that they see. I tell them things like how to get library cards, how to check out books, where to find stuff, etc., etc.
So when I come into Steph's library, your beautiful face is the first face I see.
Yep, I'm
Oh,
sitting at the front desk. Either I'm sitting at the front desk downstairs or I'm sitting at the front desk upstairs, but I'm always at a desk and I'm always helping people. And I'm not a morning person, so sometimes it's a struggle, but by noon I'm awake.
You still had an eye booger. You be like, oh,
Yep,
yeah, the
yep,
picture's
yep.
over that way. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. So by noon I'm awake. You just gotta bear with me or give me some caffeine, one or the other, and then
Okay.
I can help you out.
Okay. The guy come back afternoon like, man, you told me the fiction was over that way. And you
Right.
like, oh yeah, I was a little sleepy. I still had the eye boogers. It's actually over that way.
Right. Right. Forgive me.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So pre-show conversation, we talked. We didn't even really talk. I just asked you your topics. You said you wanted to talk about forgiveness, and that was the first thing you listed, or this is the first thing I had listed, right?
Mm,
Forgiveness and moving forward, right?
yeah.
So let's talk about it. Who, what, when, where, and how are you forgiving or working through your process of forgiveness?
Okay, so I have found that forgiveness is a two-pronged situation. Like, you have to forgive people who hurt you so that you can move on, but you also have to forgive yourself. Okay? And the second one is much harder than the first one because the first one is a choice that you make that doesn't always boomerang, if you know what I mean. So sometimes it'll boomerang back to you and you'll see that person again and you'll be like, oh yes, I have forgiven you, etc., etc. You get what's called closure.
Okay.
But when it happens that you have to forgive yourself, it's much harder because you're you all the time. There's no escape from yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to sit with yourself and understand yourself.
Okay, so you think I'm trying to make sure I'm following. Hey, Rap That Makeup. Um, you think it's harder to forgive yourself than it is to forgive other people?
Yes.
And that's because you spend your whole life with yourself.
Yes.
Ooh, I never thought of it that way. It's harder to forgive myself than it is to forgive other people. I don't know. I think people be letting themselves slide.
It depends on what you're talking about.
Okay.
So if you're okay, so like in my case, when I go out into society, there's a whole bunch of things that society tells me is wrong with me. Whether I believe that to be true or not is a whole nother thing. But to step out the door, right, I'm supposed to not have CP. I'm supposed to not have lupus. I'm supposed to be on the grind 24/7. I'm supposed to have popped out somebody's children. I'm supposed to have, the house and the picket fence and all the supposed to's, right?
Okay.
But that's not ever how my life played out. That's not the hand I got dealt. I got dealt a different hand. And in order to hold the hand that I got dealt, I have to forgive myself for not being the should.
Okay. So it's easier for you to forgive them than it is for you to forgive yourself for not attaining what their expectations of you.
Yes, sometimes.
Okay. So forget their expectations, right? Like what have you met your expectations for yourself?
Well, I have always had a different set of expectations for myself. So when I describe to people how I grew up, I always tell them that I grew up in the land of no expectations. Okay? Because nobody expected me to be here today talking to you. They said, and I quote, 24 hours tops.
When you were born?
Mm-hmm.
So they gave you 24 hours to live. I'm not allowed to ask you how old you are, but obviously you're still with us. The land of no expectations. So if you grew up in the land of no expectations, then that means that everything that comes your way should be at minimum okay.
No, not always
Okay.
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 But but I've always been given ways to handle the cards that I hold, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's always been through unexpected ways. So for me, I've always had people either help guide me through or give me pieces of what would help guide me through. And they never look like I think they're going to look like. And it never, like, me and the plan are never on the same page. Because if you would have told me then what I know now, I would
Mm-hmm.
have undone the whole plan. I would have said, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. We're going to come up with something else.
Mm. So that sounds like a one of those movies. It's like a movie where the main character has a plan, but then they meet a bunch of people along the way who kind of guide them. Kind of like the Wizard of Oz or something like
Kind
that.
of, but different.
Yeah.
Because, like, the Wizard of Oz starts out, she wants to go in search of this thing, right? She wants to go in search of something. But I wasn't searching for something, at least not in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't actually start searching for something until I realized that the people that I thought were my family were not my family.
And that's when your search began.
Right. And so the first time I was like maybe 4.5, 5 years old, my first adoption, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I left the people that I thought were my family and got adopted into this other family, except this other family didn't understand what cerebral palsy is, otherwise known as CP.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had difficulty almost from Jump Street.
Okay.
And long story short, they misused their right to be my parent. And I ended up back in the system with the family that I had left.
Okay. When you say, so this was the second family was the one that you said misused the right.
Yeah.
What did they do to misuse the right to be your family, your parents?
So they didn't understand what CP is.
Okay.
And so they're like, oh, you're not walking because you're lazy. So they took steps to make me walk, which didn't work
Okay.
because it's not a lazy. It's not being lazy.
It's an actual disability.
Right. Which
Right.
they didn't understand,
Okay.
even though they were going to adopt a child, quote unquote, with quote unquote special needs.
Wow. Okay. So then you ended up getting adopted again, or
Yes. So I went back to my foster family,
okay.
who I thought and still think of as my family, right?
Right.
Well, then for roughly 4 years go by, and I get adopted again.
Okay.
To my absolute, like, I am throwing every bit of a fit that a person can possibly throw when they're 9 years old and have been trained to act like a proper young lady and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, I'm sitting in my living room then, listening to a social worker tell me that I'm going to get adopted. And she thinks this is like the best thing since, I don't know, sliced bread. And I'm looking at her like, you must be crazy.
So let's go back a little bit, right?
Okay.
The first family that you were with that you thought was your actual family, am I right? That you thought that was like your biological family.
Right.
Why weren't you able to just ride it out with them?
Because they're foster family.
Oh, okay. So they were your foster family and you were with them for 4 or 5 years?
I was with them for 4 or 5 years in the beginning, yes. So
Okay.
my understanding of how that occurred is that my foster family got a call from the social worker, and they explained to my foster parents at the time that they had a child that needed their care but was very sick, and they did not know if I would make it. And so my mom, she said no. Her first word out of her mouth was no, because every time we take a baby, eventually we have to give them back, and it's difficult, and we don't want to,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they get attached, she gets attached, everybody gets attached, and breaking the attachment is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my parents are Southern, and so my mom and dad were talking to each other, and somehow they ended up in the hospital to come and see me, right?
Okay.
And my dad picked me up and would not put me down. That is how come they took me home.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I'm
So
with you. Okay.
right. So that's it. They're like, he was like, this is my daughter. This is what we're doing. My mom pretty much didn't have a vote. Now, I have to tell you, before I go on, I have to tell you another piece of this story. So my mom and dad are old school, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the two people that I consider my mom and dad are actually old enough to be my grandparents, right?
Okay.
But I didn't know this until much, much later. So when my mom and dad married each other, he built her a house in Northwest Atlanta. Or he either built the house or bought the house. I'm not quite sure. But at any rate, this house was a red brick house on top of a hill. And my dad was obsessed with, he wanted a white house. So instead of like talking to my mom about it, he waited till she went somewhere. And when she came home, he had painted the house.
Okay.
So we had a white house, but we had red brick stairs going up to the house. And I asked my mom one day, you know, how come we got red brick stairs in a white house? Because that just don't make sense. And she said, we have that because that's what your dad wanted. He wanted a white house on a hill. Okay, so fast forward from that point, my mom then turns around later in their marriage and asks my dad if they can do foster care because were unable to have children.
Okay.
He said no. So she waited until he went to work, and then she called the social worker and said, "We would like 2 kids, please."
Okay.
So when he came home, he was a foster father whether he wanted to be or not. Now, to have her tell it, he been talking to her for like 2 weeks or whatever. And then one night she was giving the kids a bath, and one of those children looked up at him and called him daddy, and that was it. He was sold. So fast forward to me, right?
Right.
He's the one saying, nope, this is the one. We're taking her home. And that's how I got there.
Oh, okay. Well, they sound like great people.
They were awesome people.
Are they still with us?
No, neither one of them are still with me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, yeah, they are the reason I am as strong as I am. Because they made sure that I knew who I was from the jump. And they made sure that I knew that there was God and that he had a purpose for me, whether the world said so or not.
Bless them.
Right?
They sound great, man.
Right? So the reason that I couldn't stay with that family is because my dad passed away right before I got adopted the first time.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So it's just my mom. And she felt that I needed a family. Right?
Okay. I'm with you.
And she kept trying to tell me that she was my foster family, but I didn't believe her.
Okay.
Right? She would sit me down and she would show me my life book and everything with the pictures of the people that I have no idea because I've never seen, I don't remember knowing them. Right? So anyone from my direct bloodline, I do not know. Because I was six months old, maybe, when I got taken away from my parents.
Your biological parents?
Yes.
What was up with your biological parents?
I don't know. I think that my mom had lupus, but hang on. So, Miss Miller, my mom, said to me, "I'm not your mom." And I said to her, "I don't believe you. You can keep saying that all you want to. I don't believe you. I am now 9, getting ready to be adopted for the second time." So I get adopted against my better wishes, and I end up in Wisconsin, which is where I am now. Right? So the plan was that I was just supposed to get on the plane and go to my happily ever after with this whole family who was already established as a family in this area of the country where Black people are scarce. And I'm just supposed to, roll with the punches and be their good daughter and grow up happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what happened.
So what happened?
Well, the lady of that house and myself instantly butted heads. And we
About,
kept
about
everything.
you
Because
mean
I
like
wanted to go home.
okay. So were you difficult too? So I mean, was it both of y'all or
Oh, I was difficult because I was trying to go home.
okay?
Okay, I wanted them to put me on a plane back to Georgia.
Okay.
And they kept saying, we can't do that. And I kept saying, but why? Because clearly I'm not your daughter. You
Camille
don't.
said adoption without meeting first.
Oh, yeah. No, no. They came down to Atlanta for a week.
Okay.
1 week. Never seen these people before in my life. And this lady has the audacity to ask me if my mom owns her own house.
So they come to Atlanta. This is when you were 9, right?
Yup.
They come to Atlanta for a week.
Mm-hmm.
During that week, are they interacting with you? Are you telling your people like, "Yo, like I'm not feeling this"? Like, how is
Yeah,
what's happening in that week?
Okay, so I'm telling my mom, I'm telling her, I'm like, Mom, please don't make me, like, I can't do this. This is not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm telling her in the most respectful way that I can because I am 9 and I am a Southern child. So we know, like, all of the things that come with respecting your elders was upheld in my household.
Okay.
So you can push, but you can't, you
You can
can't
push,
wild
but you
out.
can't shove.
Right. You can't wild out. You are not grown.
You get a whooping.
Right. Exactly. So I'm going through these processes and I'm telling everybody who will listen to me, I don't want to do this.
Okay.
Including the people who want to adopt me. They're like, oh, you're 9. You don't really know what you want. You'll get used to it, etc., etc. You'll adapt. It'll be fine. Yada, yada, yada. I get up here. I'm the only me. There's no, like, I don't live in a household. I live in a household with 3 people who look like me, or 3 people who don't look like me and 2 people who do. And the 2 that do were adopted as babies. So they have no recollection of their origin. They don't know. And they don't know that outside of those walls of that house, they're considered Black in this society, and they don't understand what that means.
So they have no conceptualization of being Black?
Right, because they're being raised by white people.
Oh, okay. So your mom and your dad, they were black folks.
My original, like my biological parents,
No,
yes.
no, no, no. I'm talking about your like when you say your mom, not your biological parents, your foster parents.
Yes, my foster parents were Black people.
The Southerners, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm just trying to make sure I'm following.
Okay.
And then you get at 9, you get adopted from Atlanta, from Georgia, and you're thrown out to Wisconsin.
Yes.
Have you been in Wisconsin ever since then?
Off and on, yes.
Okay.
Because when I turned 18, excuse me, I did that wrong. When I turned 19, I became a college student for the first time. And that semester break from August to December, and then we got that break. That break, I went home.
So you went home. You went back home to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So are you okay? And now, right now, you're still in Wisconsin.
Yes, right now I'm still in Wisconsin because when I went home to Atlanta, my mom sat me down at the kitchen table and told me some things. One of the things I asked her was, "Who are my parents?" She said, "You do not need to know." I said, "What do you mean I don't need to know?" She said, "You don't need to know. They don't deserve to be your parents and you don't need to know." I was like, "Okay, you must know something that I don't know." Because she wasn't budging. She was not going to tell me. Whatever she knew, she took to her grave with her. Because she was not going to tell me. And I'm 18 at the time, but that's my mom. I'm not gonna push.
Mm.
You know? I'm like, no, there's something there that you don't want to say, and whatever it is, it must be bad because that's not how, like, I don't know how to say it, but like, we were children, but we weren't treated as stupid children.
Yeah, yeah. They
Right?
communicated with you like you're an adult per se. Like
Right. But with limits.
right, right.
Right.
To the degree that you can understand and comprehend.
Right. Right. And she was really good at it, which created problems when I moved because in my new household, that was not how things were done.
Mm.
Right?
Right.
And so there were all these undercurrents of cultural differences and what have you that are not spoken about.
Right. 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 Well, I mean, were they
But I was
employed?
like supposed to know them. Like there was no one who pulled me aside and was like, okay, so this is how this works now. I was just like thrown in and like, hey, now you live here and this is this and this is that. And like, don't use your southern accent because we don't understand what you're saying. Don't ask for grits because we don't know what they are.
Well,
um,
why would they adopt you?
so I have my own theory about that, but I really can't say for sure because I don't know. I'm not gonna claim to know what they were going through. I don't know.
Are you still in contact with them? Like, are they still a part
Oh
of?
no. No, 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 no,
Okay.
no. No, as I always put it, those are two people that if I was the type to have a hit list, they'd be at the top of it.
So have you forgiven them?
No. I can honestly tell you. I'm not even going to try to lie about that one. No. And here's why. Here's why. Because they knew what they were doing when they adopted me.
What were they doing?
Okay. I think that because back in the day, now I can't say whether it works this way now, but back in those days, I know for a fact that if you adopted a child with quote unquote special needs,
Mm-hmm.
you got money from the government. I know for a fact. I don't know how much, but I know there was some money involved.
Right.
Okay. So I have my suspicions that I was a paycheck.
Okay. I'm looking it up right now.
And the reason that I have those suspicions is because later on, as I grew up in this dysfunctional household, the lady of the house would tell me, no one cares about you. I can do whatever I want to you. And I said, oh, no, you're wrong because I care about me.
Mm.
Right?
Nice.
So you're going to have to come. If you want to, like, if we're choosing between you and me, I'm definitely going to tell you it's going to be you because I'm finna stay here because I got stuff I have to do. So if you're trying to take me out, that it's a done deal. Like, don't let the, I always say, don't let the walker fool you, okay? Because it comes apart and I will beat you with it.
Man, so it's your reasonable theory that they did it for financial gain.
Right.
Do you think that's why they adopted the adopted the other two black kids too?
I don't know, but I have my suspicions because one of them was mentally ill. Like, he suffered from mental retardation. And after I was removed from their care, she turned her viciousness toward that one, and then later they placed him in a place called Winnebago, which here in Wisconsin is a mental institution. And as far as I know, that's where he still is to this day. Right?
Yeah.
So I have my suspicions, and I can't prove it. Okay? Right. I'm not saying I have concrete proof because I don't.
Okay.
But I have my strong suspicions. Now, the thing about what I said about forgiveness is that the reason that it's harder for me to forgive myself than it is to forgive them, there are days when, yeah, I can see their point sometimes. However, for me, I felt like this is not what my mom sent me on this journey for. Right? And now that she's gone, she can see everything. Right? And I was not that well-behaved daughter that she told me to be.
And you fault yourself for not being the well-behaved daughter that she taught you to be? I mean, how bad are you? You know what I mean? Like, so I think so. I ask that because sometimes as parents, we try to mold our kids to be who we think they need to be within society. But the very things that we are trying to pare out of them and mold out of them are the things or the aspects of their personality that makes them great.
Okay, well, see, that's my battle. Because some days I will agree with you and some days I will not agree with you.
What would it say in the you've read the Bible?
Yes, I read the Bible.
They say like a house divided cannot stand. I don't know the
right.
verbiage,
well,
right?
Yes. So here's the thing. On logically, I hear your words and I agree with you. But my heart is a different thing altogether. Right? Because I very much want, and I don't say this often because I'm a Leo, so this don't come out my mouth.
Hold on, you a Leo?
Yes. I am the sun.
Carry on.
So
carry on, Leo.
So the thing about it is, I don't say this often, but like, I wanted my parents, both of them, to be proud of me. Right? And when I think about how things unfolded with the second adoption, I don't know that I could say that they would be proud of me.
Well, this is what I think. I think it's natural for children to want their parents to be proud of them, right? I also believe that sometimes you have to be willing to be who you are unapologetically to prove to your parents that who I am is someone that would make you proud, even though you may not agree with all of my choices or the way I necessarily conduct myself. So, if I were you, if I were in your shoes per se, in that particular instance, because I could never walk in your shoes. You're a superhero. I'm a mere peasant in your world.
Okay, we'll get to that because we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
But the basis of what I'm saying is like, you're a beautiful person. You have succeeded far beyond your expectations from the day you came here, right? Be you, whatever that is. Be you wholly. You know what I'm saying? We all have these, what society or what our parents may deem to be negative qualities. But in those negative qualities, that's where you find the diamonds. That's where you find the gold. That's where the pressure is. And so it's important that you, me, and all the rest of us embrace the demons that are ourselves and make them our friends and use them to our benefit.
I'm trying now, but
Well,
it's been a long road. I'm trying now, and sometimes I wonder about how this is going because so I was born with cerebral palsy, and then I broke my adoption with Chris and them, the Wisconsin family, at 13. I'd had enough. I was like, it's either you or me, and trust me, it's gonna be you, and I'm gonna end up on the 6 o'clock news, get carted off in handcuffs, and orange is really not a good look. I mean, I like the color orange and I look good in it, but not forever. Do you understand? So I played the only card I felt I had left, because she literally would take me to psychologists and psychiatrists, and like they would all say the same thing. Your daughter's fine. She just doesn't like you. So somehow that got translated into I hate white people, which is not true.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
So at 13, when I got put back in the system by my choice, because I was so what happened is, after a brief stay, like a month, maybe a month and a half, in a legit mental institution, they decided that I was not crazy. After they taught me how to play floor hockey, best time ever. They decided, like, you're not crazy. You just, don't want to be here. And we wouldn't want to be here either if we had to come from sunshine to snow all the time and cold and everything else.
Right.
Right. Well, my adoptive parents didn't like that diagnosis. So when I got back from that place, things did not get better. And somehow we got into an argument over a toothbrush. And she went to put her hands on me. And so when I got on the school bus that day, I made up my mind. I was like, okay, that's it. I'm not coming back to that. Right? But while I was at school, I was also thinking, like, okay, but in order not to come back to that, like, I have to figure out an alternative, because my route to school is the school bus. The school bus won't leave school without all its passengers, right? So I went to the school social worker and I told her, I said, I can't go home. And she said, why not? I said, well, if I go home, you're going to read about me in the 6 o'clock news, because it's either going to be her or me. Take your pick. And when you say that to a social worker at school, they have to report it. They can't call your bluff and be like, we don't believe you, go home. We'll see you on Monday.
And you knew that.
And I knew that. And the reason I knew that is because she used to take me to these psychologists and psychiatrists who would tell me, we have to report 3 things. If somebody's hurting you, which is questionable, because I told them, I'm being hurt. They didn't listen to me because The woman is a master at what I call the mask. Like, she has it down pat, like cold. I've never seen anything like it. So when the school would call her to ask her, like, okay, well, why isn't she doing her homework, or why isn't she doing this, or why doesn't she come to school with proper clothing, and blah, da, 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 da. And she'd be like, oh, because she's just difficult in the morning. She doesn't want to get dressed right. And they bought it.
So you did what you had to do.
So I said, all right, fine. I know a way I can get you to listen. Obviously, my life is not what y'all care about, but I bet you care about her life. I bet you. So that's the card I played. And they can't, like I said before, they can't just send you home and be like, have at it.
Right.
So I ended up again in the mental institution, but this time in the state one, the serious one.
Right.
They said, you are not crazy. I said, no kidding. Can you send me home? They said, no, we can't. So why not? So it doesn't work that way. So your choices are, you can go back to her, you can go with a family member, or you can go to foster care. I said, I'll take foster care for $900, Alex. And off to foster care I went.
It's a daily double.
Right. Like, that's where I placed my bet. I was like, all right, foster care it is. But I didn't count on the crazy that came from that choice, right? Because I thought all foster parents loved their foster children. And I thought that it would be like growing up in mama's house.
Right.
And I learned fast that that wasn't the case. So I bounced and I bounced, kind of like a rubber ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I turned 18, I was still in high school. And so the state made the decision that I could not stay with the foster parents that I was staying with, because I would be an adult. And
Right.
so the summer between my junior year and my senior year, I moved again. And then my senior year, after I moved, I had to go to high school with a whole new group of people who didn't know me or anything like that. And the theater kids literally saved my life. Because I volunteered to be like backstage, costumes, running lines with them, like all of that stuff. The stuff nobody wants to do. Right? Because I didn't really want to be on the stage. That's not my bag. I didn't want to be in front of people.
Right.
But I like helping other people be in front of people. So that's what I did my senior year, and they saved my life. And then I graduated high school. I walked across the stage, got my diploma without my walker, and set off on the adventure that was going to be adulthood.
You went across the stage without your walker?
Yep.
Hey, that's what's up.
Right?
That's what's
I
up.
was so happy. June 7th, 1998.
Okay.
I made it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're around the same age then. I graduated 2000.
Yep, we're around the same age, you and I.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very, very, very happy, because to hear everybody else tell it, it was never gonna happen.
See, like, you keep proving these people, you have proved everybody wrong. How could you even imagine that your parents wouldn't be proud of you?
Because I don't know. Okay, how do I say this without crying? I am not what is considered normal, right? I'm not. I have both CP and lupus, which is because God has a sense of humor. And that makes things really difficult. Plus, unknowns to me, I'm only discovering this now that I'm older. Like, CP came with its own bag of complications. So I think like I'm on the autism spectrum, but I never got completely diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never been like officially diagnosed with that, but I guarantee you that I am. If you spend any amount of time with me, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, there's definitely, you definitely are on the spectrum, right? And just, yeah, I don't know, when everybody else was like worrying about proms and all that stuff, I was like plotting what I'm gonna do when I finally get free of foster care. So
Mm.
I like feel like I just missed that whole social interaction with people, all the social stuff that people just know. I
Mm.
have a very hard, it's very hard for me. It's very hard.
Keisha said, "What is normal? You are amazing, Steph." Let's go back in the comments for a second.
Okay.
Uh, so wrapped in makeup said, "You're amazing." Elaney said, "Shine on, Leo." Wrapped in makeup said, "Oh, my sister, they are proud of you," and I guarantee you, she's talking about your parents. Elaney said, "I'm sure they're proud of who you've become." See, they said facts. Yes. Camille says she is super shero. So, I mean, based on everything that I've heard and what you told me, I don't find any particular reason why they wouldn't be proud of you. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just a guy. I am a cop, but I think that's a thought that you could probably figure out a way to let go of, because I'm pretty sure they're proud of you.
I believe you.
Okay, good.
I'm not gonna, I believe you.
Joy said, "You are her new hero." Told y'all she was a shero.
Listen, don't be putting me up on no pedestals or nothing like that, cause what you're seeing that makes you think that is only God, I promise. Cause my flesh be wanting to like wild out.
Oh, man, we all got issues, right? But I mean, you have done and overcame more than most people could in lifetimes, right? You, like I said, when I say you're a hero, you, to me, that's just what it is.
Okay, I will accept that. I'm learning to accept that, I should say.
Yeah,
So
just accept it.
would you like,
Acceptance is easy.
would you like me to continue?
Continue on.
Okay, so I managed to get out of high school and everything, get through that whole gauntlet, and I'm at UWM with no like plan.
What's that? What's UWN?
The University of Wisconsin at Milwaukee.
Okay.
So I'm there, but I have no plan. And I don't have like parents who moved me in and like went to the disability services and told them anything about me. Like none of the services that were there to help me even realized I was on campus. Okay, because I didn't know that that was a thing. Like I had no idea. I was just like, listen, I'm going to college and y'all can't tell me anything about what to do no more. And as soon as I get there, like I'm out, this is over, I'm done, like that's it. Well, God was like, you're gonna sit down. And so after the first year there, because I wasn't prepared to be there, and at the time I was wheelchair bound, because my doctor told me that the only way I could go to college was to have a wheelchair. That was a lie, but I listened to the lie. And so I spent a year in a wheelchair, And when I got out of that wheelchair, I could not walk.
So you spent a year in a wheelchair that you didn't necessarily have to spend that year in
Yeah.
the wheelchair, and when you got, by the time it was time for you to be done with it, you couldn't walk.
Yeah. So then I had to learn how to walk because my muscles were like essentially atrophying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I taught basically like went through the gauntlet of like learning how to do that again. So then I left school and I moved in with a friend of mine's mom. And for a while we were cool and everything was going good. And then life got crazy again. And then eventually I ended up on my own, but by choice this time. And I decided to come to a town called Sheboygan. And
That's in
while
Wisconsin. Okay.
and while I'm here in Sheboygan, I learned that they had a university here.
Okay.
So I enrolled in university. And I'm working my way through university, and all of a sudden I get this rash on my face. It looks like a butterfly, and it itches so bad that I literally look like the Swamp Thing because I have scratched the skin off of my face because this rash itches. Okay? And I
Mm-hmm.
go to the doctor and I say to the doctor, yo, what's going on with my face? And he was like, it's an allergic reaction. And I'm like, to what? He's like, I don't know. I think it's environmental. I'm like, okay, but I don't know to what, so I don't understand, right? Well, I had to leave UW Sheboygan
Mm-hmm.
because while I was there, so the first year I was there, or the first semester I was there, I did great. And then the second semester I was there, they wanted me to join everything. They're like, you're a straight A student. You should join this, and that. And I listened and I joined everything. I had
Okay.
the best time ever. We went to Pine Ridge. We went to yell at Congress in D.C., which is how I fell in love with Washington, D.C. And I totally forgot about school. So they were like, you need a timeout. So we're going to sit you down for a semester. I said, okay. But instead of going back to UW Sheboygan, I decided to try to go to to Lakeland University because they're a private college. And at that time, I thought I wanted to be like a pastor or somebody who worked in the church,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, so they have religious studies there, so I went there to do that. In the middle of doing that, my iron level tanked to the
Mm-hmm.
point where I could not move. The nurse was like, we need to give you a transfusion right now. Like at the college, they're giving me a transfusion in the nurse's office because it's that serious.
Wow.
So some more time went by and I was like, okay, the symptoms, by this time, the mask on my face had kind of disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't as prominent. And, my iron level was coming back around and everything seemed straight. That March, my body just stopped cold.
What do you mean by stop cold?
It just stopped. I was like, my friend found me on the floor.
Like you just like
It
out.
just stopped. I was just done.
How old are you at this point?
I'm almost 30.
Okay, almost 30. Okay.
Yeah, I'm leaving my 20s going into my 30s.
Okay.
And he's freaking out because he found me this way. When he brings me to, he says, I'm going to call the ambulance to come and get you. And I was like, no, you're not, because do you know how much ambulances cost?
$500.
He's like, listen, he's like, let me worry about that. We're going to get you to the hospital now. So they took me to the nearest hospital. While I'm in the hospital, the nurses are like, we have no idea what is, nurses and doctors are like, we have no idea what is happening to you. We need to put a tube down your throat. Can we do that? At first I said yes. When they started doing it, I said no and started fighting them.
Right.
They knocked me out.
Okay.
So they could put the tube down my throat. And then
Right.
they flighted me from hospital up here down to Milwaukee to St. Luke's. While I'm at St. Luke's Hospital, they tell me, you have systematic lupus. Systematic lupus erythematosus, otherwise known as SLE.
Okay, let's pause right there. Let's pause right there for a second. I don't really know. Maybe someone in the audience knows. What is lupus? And what does it do to you?
Okay, so lupus, okay, first of all, let me just say there are different types of lupus.
Okay.
The type of lupus that I have is the type of lupus that affects your entire body.
Okay.
So when I told you earlier that I had this rash on my face that itched, that was the first clue, because that is called the butterfly rash. And indeed, it was in the shape of a butterfly. Okay? And the reason that people then, they didn't know. They had no idea. That's why lupus is called the great mystery. Because number one, it mimics other things. Number two, if you don't know what you're looking for, you can miss the signs.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures now. I don't know. Can y'all see that? Can you see that?
Yeah. Except on my skin, it was 3 shades darker than my actual skin tone.
Okay.
Okay? And so I have a theory about this. Because when I went to the doctor that I went to said it was an environmental rash. Remember? He said, it's a rash caused by your environment. And I was like, what in my environment is doing this to my face? Because please make it stop. Right? That doctor was not a person of color. That doctor was going off of the knowledge that he had available to him at the time.
Right.
He was asking me questions and putting my responses up against the patients that he sees on a regular basis, which do not look like me, do not sound like me, and don't have my life.
Let me ask you this. I have a question.
Okay.
Does lupus, okay, so obviously how different diseases and stuff like that and illnesses like that can affect different people of different ethnicities differently.
Yes.
Does lupus affect Black people differently than it affects, say, white people or an Asian person or something like that?
I do not know.
Okay.
But however, I do know that African American women are the most affected group.
Really?
Yes, the most.
Wow, I didn't know that. I don't know too much about lupus.
The most affected group.
Wow.
To the point where doctors, after I got hooked up with the right doctors, were always telling me and asking me if I was going to have children, and I kept saying, I'm not in a position to have children. I'm barely taking care of myself at that point in time. I would later find out that I cannot have children because I cannot carry a child because I only have half a uterus. So I do not have the capability of carrying children ever, which is to me heartbreaking because I love kids. I am like the biggest kid you will ever, like, kids and me, we get along great. I teach them how to play with my walker. I like roll them around in my wheelchairs. It's wonderful. They think I am the greatest and I love it. However, God didn't give me that capability, so I can't have kids. And after they flighted me down to Milwaukee and I found out I had lupus, the doctor's exact words were, "You have lupus and it is hereditary." I said, "Come again?" She said, "It is hereditary." And I let out the longest string of curse words I have ever let out in my life. I said, "Are you kidding me right now?" She said, "No, it is hereditary. You get it it's carried from the mother's bloodline and it's transmitted to her babies." So remember what I told you about forgiveness? That moment, I realized that I had this all wrong. I was walking around with a big sour face talking about my parents didn't want me, they don't love me, etc., etc., etc. Come to find out, my mom had lupus.
Do you think her having lupus played a part in her not raising you?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Because if you give me a child, like, I know I told you I can't have children, but if I could have had children, and if I would have had children and had to go through what I go through on a daily basis by myself with a child, I don't know that I could do it.
So let me ask you this. I have a question for you. If you could be face to face with your biological mother, what would you want to say to her? What would you want to tell her?
I think the first thing I would say is, I forgive you. Because this whole time, and I don't know where I got this from, because nobody ever told me that the reason my parents weren't my parents is because they didn't love me. Nobody told me that, right? I made that assumption, right? That was the assumption that I made. So I created this whole backstory for these two people that I've never met and don't have names for, that, like, they didn't want kids and they didn't love me, and they, like, love my sister more because they kept my sister. As far as I know. Right. But I went into the system.
Wow.
Do you understand? So now do you understand what I'm saying about forgiveness? It's levels to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
And I asked God for the answer, because I was like, okay, because everybody was telling me, like, you ain't never going to find your parents and blah, 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 and this, that, and the third. And I was like, whatever, okay. But every night I go to bed and I say, I just want to know the answer. Like, you don't even have to let me talk to them. Just give me the answer. So at 30 years old, when I got properly diagnosed with lupus, and that doctor said it is hereditary, literally, it was like listening to puzzle pieces click into, you remember the old school puzzles that you could hear when they locked into place? It was like all of the pieces locking themselves into place. Like, are you kidding me right now?
Right. So you would tell her that you forgive her.
Yep.
Are you you're at peace with where you are right now?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
It's a daily thing. I'm learning how to unravel the poison that was placed in my head from other people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning how to correct my own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning how to be kinder to myself. I'm learning that perfect is not a thing and normal does not exist. I am learning to make believe.
Make, comma,
Believe.
believe. That was from me and Keisha's live. I think that was Keisha's live. We all
Yup.
kind of pondered that one together. We like, make,
Yup.
comma, believe. You make
Make
yourself believe.
believe. I am learning. I am learning to make believe.
Okay. So you want to be a librarian?
I do want to be a librarian. Really bad.
How close are you to being a librarian? I don't know. Do you have to have like a bachelor's degree to be a librarian?
You have to have a bachelor's and you have to have your master's.
Let's need a master's to be a librarian. You can't just walk
Yes.
up in a joint and be like, I know where all the books are.
Right. It don't work that way.
How
So
close are you?
by law, you have to have your master's. Now, if you want to work in a law library, which is where I wanted to be, you have to have a law degree and your master's in library science.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I got on the bus real late, so that is not happening.
You got plenty of time.
I got on this bus really late, and that is not the road I'm going down. However, I want to control the collection for the librarian, so I want to be the one that says we should have this book and that book and this book and that book and this book over here.
So you want control over the inventory?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I see.
So that's what I want to do. And right now I'm going to school, but I had to take a break because I got COVID. So in the middle of this semester, because I started again.
Mm-hmm.
I enrolled as a student at UW Green Bay, and in the middle of this semester, I got COVID.
I remember when you told me you had COVID.
So it sidelined me because of the lupus. Like if I wouldn't have already a compromised immune system, it would have been different. Like I would have gotten myself out of bed, dragged myself to the kitchen table, sat down at my computer and done my stuff. But I couldn't. I lost my sense of balance and I couldn't move. Right? So I spent close to 3 weeks in bed. So, and because they're online classes, like I don't have the face-to-face with the professors.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, nope, I'm going to scrap it and start it over. So hopefully once I get myself solid again to where I can pay for it myself and not have to take out loans, then I'll return to school, finish my bachelor's degree, which will hopefully be in creative writing. It's either going to be either creative writing or Spanish because I am taught myself 2 years worth of Spanish on Duolingo, which is harder than it sounds.
So you speak Spanish?
Un poquito.
Un poquito?
Sí.
Un poco.
No, a very little. Poquito means
muy poquito.
Yes.
Muy
A very, very little. Like, I can maybe tell you my name and ask you where the bathroom is and tell you, not to poison me. But I need to go to, like, Costa Rica and live with the grandma who is not going to let me speak English.
Yeah, I've messed around with Spanish on the apps on my phone and stuff like that. And when we went on our honeymoon in Mexico, they were teaching it to me. But I like Spanish. Have you ever seen the? It was a Martin movie. You seen the Martin movie with? I think it was Blue. It might have been Blue Street.
Blue Streak when he was a cop.
Yeah, at the end he was like, "Yo, Tango, El Gato in Los Pantalones."
Yeah.
He got a big cat in his pants.
Yeah, yeah, cause he has never. Now, did you know Will Smith speaks fluent Spanish?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you watch Bad Boys 3, that's the new one, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 is the new one. If you watch that one, he speaks fluent Spanish in real life. Like
I've seen it, but I don't remember him speaking Spanish in it. But
that wasn't.
I can believe it though.
Like that wasn't. He wasn't playing. He really does that in real life.
Oh.
So I was like, those are goals. I want to do that. Maybe not, you know, on a movie screen, but I want to be able to speak fluent Spanish.
Yeah, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a pact.
Okay.
We're gonna learn to speak Spanish, and then we're gonna come back in a year or two from now. We're gonna have this whole conversation for our Spanish speaking audience.
The whole thing?
The whole thing.
All right.
Hold on, let me go back right quick.
Okay.
I gotta make sure I get these last 2 joints in.
Yeah.
Somebody said something that I wanted to read. Wrapped in Makeup said you'd be the most perfect librarian. Yes, that's the only thing that would be perfect. Common to learn Spanish. Camille probably speaks Spanish.
Camille, I'm actually going out to Cali in July for my birthday because a friend of mine lives out there. She's in the military. Well, she was. And her family is stationed out there right now in San Diego. So I'm going in July.
Oh, okay. My brother-in-law, my wife's brother, and his family are in San Diego. And Libby is always on FaceTime with her cousin. And she always tells me that she wants to go to California. So there's that. Joy said her son speaks
Chinese. That's hard.
I'm sure it is. That's dope, though. Speak Chinese. Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you want the world to remember you?
Ooh. You know what? Have you ever been invited over to somebody's house and then didn't want to go home at the end of the night, even though you knew you had to go home?
I know the feeling.
Right. That feeling. That's the feeling that I want you to have once you like get to know me and have been, because anybody who really gets to know me eventually gets invited to my house for dinner. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I love to cook. So I cook all the time. And so you get invited to dinner and I ask you some questions because if I'm cooking for you, then I'm cooking for you, right? I'm not cooking for me. So if you tell me something like, I don't eat asparagus, I might give you like the side eye, like what? Because I don't understand people who don't eat vegetables, but that's a whole different topic. Listen, I will cook according to your taste. You will get a meal that is tailored for you. That is how I do it, because that is how my mom taught me how to do it. She was real big on hospitality and treating people well. And so that's how I want you to remember me.
DJ Drip 1983, what up, baby? How you feeling? Wow. So you want to be remembered as the person who people never want to leave their house.
Yep.
The person that it's like, man, I go over there, I don't even want to leave.
I just chill out. We can watch movies. We can listen to music because I have an insane Spotify playlist. It's up to like, I think the last count was like 3,580 some songs.
Oof.
And it runs like the gamut. I have everything, literally. I can take you through the OJs, up to Noriega, down, all over the place. California Dreamin', all like my musical taste is insane.
You have all of that in one playlist?
Yup, it's called The Soundtrack to My Life.
You should post a link to it. Can't you post a link to your playlist? Like on Facebook?
I'll have to figure out how to do it. I'm sure I can. I just don't know how to do it yet.
Yeah. So when you go to your, you use Spotify.
Yep.
So when you go to Spotify, see if there's that little box with the arrow to see if you can share. And if you can share and you can copy the link, if it don't let you share directly to Facebook, you can copy the link and then paste it as your status, and then that'll bring the playlist up, and we could all rock out to your playlist.
All right. But
so that would be cool. DJ Drip said you can. You know what time it is, right, Steph?
I've been okay, so on the low, since I follow you like I'm crazy, I know that you asked for the top 5, but
yep.
my list is more than 5 people.
I tell you what, I will make you a deal. Because you're a superhero, super shero, and you have completely demolished all expectations that people have ever had for you. How many you need?
So I know for a fact off the top it would be 10 people minimum.
Okay.
Because I would want to have them. I would want to do like the old, like, so back in the day, like before I was me, they used to throw like these parties for the artists and the, like the people.
Uh-huh.
And especially us, because, back in those days, we just couldn't go everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So after, like, you done did the March on Washington or whatever, and you needed a place to chill or whatever, they'd all get together just to chill out.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be that kind of thing, but it'd be dinner at my house.
Okay, so you're gonna give me your top 10, dead or alive, real or fictional. The setting is your house for dinner.
Yes.
They all there.
Yes.
Give
They're all 10. There. Okay, so first would be my mom and dad. My biological
or your mom and your dad?
Both.
Okay.
Because I feel like the person I call my mom needed to actually have a conversation with my biological mom.
Okay.
So I would want to be able to facilitate that. And with them in my house, she'd have to play by the rules that she taught me. So like they would have to work it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. Let me ask you this. So that's 4. Does that count 4 out of 10, or is that 1? That's 1.
I mean, how do you how much of the rules am I allowed to bend?
Bend them all you want.
Okay, so that's 1 then.
Okay, that's 1. Who else we got? I'll write them down too as you go. So that's 1. All right, my wife came in and made me taste a strawberry, so it was really good.
So I would like Lorraine Hinsberry, who wrote A Raisin in the Sun.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to talk to her about the continuation of that, because I started something based on the characters that she created. And so I would like to pick her brain.
Okay.
I would like to have James Baldwin.
James Baldwin. Okay. Why does it get bright like that?
I would like to have Langston Hughes.
You got some good ones.
Maya Angelou.
Hold on, I'm writing this down.
Oh,
so I can
okay.
have it. Slow down. Hold on.
I'm sorry. I'll stop so you can let me know when I can speak again.
You can go. I'm caught up now. I can type reasonably fast. So let me go back. You got your parents, biological, and your foster, your mom and your dad.
Uh-huh.
Lorraine, is it Hensbury?
Yep.
Okay. James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou. That's 5. So you can give me 5 more.
Okay. Then I would like Thurgood Marshall.
Ooh, that's my guy.
I would
Okay.
like a W.E.B. Du Bois.
Okay.
I would like Marcus Garvey. Where am I number wise?
I just wrote Du Bois at number 7, Marcus Garvey
Okay.
at
And
number 8. Okay.
Zora Neale Hurston.
Okay.
Miss Alice Walker.
Okay. That's 10 right there. You got more?
I do, but I can stop because we agreed to stop at 10.
Okay. How many more you got? You got some in the top of your head or in the bottom?
No, the top of my head.
Okay. Give me 5 more.
So, Alice Walker is where it stopped.
Yep, she was number 10.
Okay. So then, what's his name? The senator that just passed away, not to Mr. John Lewis.
Yeah, John Lewis.
Senator John Lewis.
Okay.
Robert F. Kennedy.
RFK. Okay.
And his sister, but I can't remember her name right now. The one with, the one who her father and I have to specify this. I would have a conversation with her before she had her lobotomy.
I don't know. Is it Rosemary?
I think so.
I'm looking it up.
Okay. I don't, her name escapes me right now.
But it's RFK's sister.
Yep.
Okay, RFK's sister.
And Eleanor Roosevelt.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yep.
Okay, that's 14. You got one more if you want to.
And Tupac.
Oh my God. So I'm gonna do the rundown.
Okay.
Your parents.
Yep.
Both sets.
Yep.
Lorraine Hensbury. James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, Maya Angelou, Thurgood Marshall, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Zora Neale Hurston. Did I say her last name right?
Yep.
Okay. Alice Walker. That was your top 10. And at the other table, you got John Lewis, RFK and his sister, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Tupac.
Yep.
Cool. So, and how do you imagine this dinner with them going? Is it like just like conversation? It's like family dinner, like we all.
It's like family dinner.
That's what's up.
It's like family dinner, and the reason that I picked these people is because the bodies of work that they left behind makes me feel like I know them. Right? So,
okay.
So RFK met with Lorraine Hensbury, and it did not go well their first meeting.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, he was a Kennedy. So he was him. And all of the arrogance that comes with being Kennedy and never having to like work, basically.
Yeah.
Right? And she was his opposite, but she was not afraid to check him.
So did they eventually become cool?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. And I don't know how to find that out. And I've like dug and I can't seem to find an answer. But in my mind, like if I were to write a story and cast all of these people in the story, they would all be cool with each other. Right? Right. So, yeah. Okay. And there are other people that should be at this party too, but I don't want to keep you all night. This is what happens when you read. Like, I'm a reader. I'm with the books all the time. So I just have like an insane amount of people that I just want to show up at my house and sit down and have dinner with.
Well, I will tell you this. I'm disappointed.
Why?
Because everybody's at the dinner. And I ain't get an invite.
But yours is unspoken. I mean, I follow you all the time.
I'm just playing.
You sneeze and I'm on the internet, yo.
I know. I just figure I'd mess with you. But I always give my guests an opportunity to ask me a question. So if you wanted to ask me a question, since I ain't important enough to come to the dinner with the Kennedys and the Baldwins and
you, Lil,
justices.
no, listen, you, Lil, and Libby and Finn, y'all all have invitations.
We're gonna be the servants.
No, you ain't.
We're gonna be the help.
No, you're not. No, you're not. It's gonna be y'all can't make a move until they get served.
I'm just messing with you, Steph. But if you got a question for me, this is your moment.
Well, seeing as how I know next week that you have your interview, I'm gonna wait because I wanna save it for the interview.
Okay, cool. So since you brought it up, next week I'm the guest on my own show. I gotta get with Mimi and figure out the logistics of how we're gonna do this thing. So for those of you who are on the live, if you want to have an opportunity to watch me have my brain picked, be there next Friday. Is today the 20th? Hey, it is next Friday.
Yeah.
Be there next Friday at 7 p.m. right here. We'll be here, and y'all could pick my brain about pretty much anything you want.
Well, thank you so much for letting me come talk to you and share my story. I don't know if I told you this, but I am writing a book.
Yeah.
About this very thing that I told you about. It is complicated to write, but I'm trying to write it. And so keep me in your prayers because it's one thing to tell somebody, it's another thing to write it down.
Yeah, I can only imagine, but once you're done with the book, come back and we'll do a promo interview for the book.
Awesome. Sounds good.
We'll do all about the book.
Sounds good.
It's been real. I appreciate you, Steph. I love you. You always the first person when I hit the live button, Steph, be front and center.
Because I get to nerd out with you. That's why. Like, you don't just be talking about, who's on YouTube. You actually go deep and talk about things that matter. So it's important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I genuinely enjoy in-depth, intellectual, open-minded talk, conversation. I like learning about people. So that's what
it shows. You can tell.
That's what I do. So I mean, you got my number. If you ever need me, hit me up. I love you, Steph. You are one of my heroes, yeah. I'm so happy that I got to meet you.
Thank you. I'm happy that we met too. And this whole thing started because of Melissa, who I've actually never met in person.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. I only met her once.
I've never met her in person. We became Facebook friends because I'm a poet. And that's how this whole thing started.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe good people, Camille. I done met a few people through Mimi. So you're one of them. I'm happy to have you as a friend, your family, if you need me. If you get pulled over, say, hey, my brother is a cop. And you just call me. And I'll be like, yeah. And I get suspended.
I'm not going to get you suspended. I don't drive a car yet. So that's why I want to move out to DC. Because then I won't have to drive.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Yep.
So.
But Lord willing. So thank you so much for your time. I won't keep you. Hug the babies and tell Lil I said hi.
Lil on here. Lil told me to speak for myself, peasant, because earlier I was walking around the house with a dusty. I was walking around the house with one of those throw blankets, and I was let me see if I can show y'all kind of. I can't stand up and do it because it'll mess it up. But what I did was, I had the blanket wrapped around me like this. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Don't y'all go nowhere. I'm gonna show y'all what I was doing to my family earlier. Y'all still there?
Yep.
All right, cool. So, hope to God don't knock this stuff over, but I ain't gonna stand up and do it. I got a towel to show y'all to give y'all an example. This is the crazy stuff I be doing around the house. So I had a blanket. This is a towel, but it's red. It's burgundy, and I said, "I am royalty, mere peasants." And Libby was there playing, and I was like, "Peasant child, bring me a water." And I told Lily, and I said, "You are a peasant. I have brought you into this family of royalty. I have the burgundy robe because it's blood royalty. Peasant child, get off of the floor. Bring me my food." So that's what I was doing earlier, and that's why Lil said, "Speak for yourself,
Peasant."
And that's the crazy stuff. Like when I be posting my reels and I be dancing like Usher and all of that, like that's really how I be in the crib. So that's that. But Steph, I'm gonna let you go. Like I said, I love you. I'll hit you up, let you know when it's gonna hit YouTube. And if you need anything, just give me a call.
Okay, sounds good. Take care.
All right. Hey. Hold on. Royalty must retire to his castle. You mere peasants can log off of the live now. Joy, you are not a mere peasant. You are a mere commoner. The king's love, he loves you all. You all have a good night. Be blessed, peasants. Peace.